Live from the Business Radio X studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and we are broadcasting as usual from inside Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta. And folks, if you have not been inside a Renaissance Bank branch, you have missed out on personal service. When you go into a branch, they actually greet you and they're interested in seeing you. And if you're fed up with the impersonal mega bank experience, and if you're at one of those banks, you know what I'm talking about, then give Renaissance Bank a try. They deliver their services with the highest of personal care, and they have pretty much any service you can draw out for a small bank, or small business, I should say. And that's a magic combination. So go to renaissancebank.com and find one of their local offices and give them a call. And I think you'll be glad you did. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to welcome Mary Block. Mary is the owner of Mobility Plus Alpharetta. Mary, welcome.
Thanks for having me, John.
I'm delighted to have you. Let's talk about you and Mobility Plus. How you serving folks out there?
So Mobility Plus Alpharetta sells, services, and rents medical equipment. We focus mainly on the home market. We don't do institutional sales. And we help people recover from surgery when they're recuperating at home, or we help people age in place and thrive in assisted living.
Terrific. Before we get into the details of that important work that you do, let's talk about your backstory. What led to you getting into this business?
I was a teacher and I loved it. I taught in the public school system here in North Fulton. I believe in public education and I was highly invested in what I was doing. But at the same time, I was caring for my father. And so I took care of him in his last year of life. I was part of the sandwich generation and can relate to what all of my customers are going through. I used to have to leave work and go to his assisted living home in Decatur and help dress his wounds. And I would go on weekends and do his laundry and take care of him. And we were extremely close. I was the youngest. And I realized during that time that I could never find what I needed when I needed it. And if I had questions, I'd call someone and I felt dismissed if they didn't see me as a potential customer. So when I needed to rewrite my story and I wanted a new adventure, my husband and I decided that we wanted to focus on the senior space and try to fill a gap. We really saw an opportunity here.
You would think that gap would not exist here in the North Fulton area, right? Because aging in place is a big issue in this region.
It is. And Atlanta is one of the fastest growing markets for seniors to both age in place and move into an assisted living community. I think Scott and I have a unique business philosophy that's not unique, but we're pretty old school. So our customers get our cell phone numbers. We are community minded and we're full service. And we try to be highly responsive. And I think that's where the opportunity lies. And so far it's worked for us.
The empathy you bring to your customers, I would think, is magic, because those, as you experienced, those are individuals that are in the sandwich generation, that are going through something they've never been through before, and they don't know where to turn for all the answers they have to get. And it's not just about medical and mobility equipment. It's about healthcare and doctors and where someone's living and all these issues, right? They just seem overwhelming. So give some advice to someone who is in that predicament. And it's a loving predicament because they're caring for a loved one. They're in that situation and they need a pat on the back, if you will.
Sure. So the first thing I would say is seek out a local dealer for your needs, because nobody that comes through my door just needs a power wheelchair or a hospital bed, they need a host of other items like home care and home health and senior placement advisors. And because Scott and I live and work in Alpharetta, we've developed close relationships with some trusted referral partners, and we love sharing that information. It makes the journey so much easier. When I respect the individualism in trying to go it alone, but that is a tough road. And sometimes it's a long journey with a loved one. We're not talking about 6 months, it's often years. So I would say find a community partner, trust their referrals, and let them help guide you. The second thing I would say is people often think that insurance will cover all of the equipment needs, when in fact there are a lot of deficits there. And we tell people it's not really whether you're going to have financial output, it's how you're going to spend the money. So we like to tell people when everyone is healthy and well, take a rainy day, help your mom or dad go through their Medicare plan and look at that evidence of benefits. And they can go to Medicare.org. They can scroll through the list of plans and find theirs, and then go to the evidence of benefits document and find out what is covered in the event that something's needed, so that you're not blindsided when you're emotionally vulnerable and sitting in a hospital room waiting for discharge.
Great advice from Mary Block, folks. She's the owner of Mobility Plus here in Alpharetta. So let's talk about culture, because it sounds like culture is a really important part of your business, not just for you and Scott as owners, because you're obviously vested in the business, but for your employees.
Absolutely. So Scott and I started this business later in life. We'd had lots of work experiences under our belts, and we want to be the employers that we loved, that we had. We want to model those same characteristics, because people spend a lot of time at work and we want them to want to stay with us. So it's not just about what can those employers do for our customers, but it's what can we as employers do for our employees. They're valuable to us. And both Scott and I had times where we felt highly valued in a work situation, and we had times where we felt like we were not quite as valued as what we felt we had to offer. So we have a very open dialogue with our employees. We try to explicitly express gratitude, but then we also ask for feedback. We're very comfortable being uncomfortable and asking hard questions. And even though somebody may work for us 18 or 20 hours a week, it doesn't make their feedback less important to us.
Yeah, that is really true in a small business where you have such close contact with your customers, right? And getting that feedback from wherever it comes, whether it's you as owners and listening to customer feedback or what employees tell you about what the customer's saying, is really important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about, I guess, the details of some of the medical and mobility equipment that you sell, and I think you rent as well, correct?
We do. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're authorized dealers for 26 different suppliers. We have a core group of suppliers that we focus on. So we install and repair stair lifts. We install vehicle lifts to transport mobility equipment on hitches on the backs of cars. We do modular wheelchair ramp systems, and then we do powered mobility like scooters and power wheelchairs. We do manual mobility like walkers and manual wheelchairs, and we do home health and other fall prevention items. And then we also rent, since we have a large rental fleet of scooters, we rent for corporate events and large social events as well.
Wow, that's great. That's a great service. You talk about some of this equipment is, I guess, what you would call staged, for lack of a better way to put it. An individual needs various pieces of equipment for mobility aids at various points in their lives.
Right.
So for someone who is working with mom and dad or a loved one, and they see the progression of mobility I guess that window continuing to close, what kind of planning ahead should they do?
So it's simple to do.
Can you plan ahead?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think having, like I mentioned, about being knowledgeable about what your insurance covers and doesn't cover, it's the same approach when you're talking with mom or dad. Try to have those conversations when everyone is well and healthy. Sit at the table and talk about maybe what comes first when you first start to see signs of diminished mobility. And I think that we as children often struggle with not wanting to feel like we're parenting our parents. That is a phrase that's often used, but we don't want to infantilize our parents.
Sure.
We want to respect who they were. They had long careers and are educated individuals. We want them to have autonomy. But I think just entering in a dialogue, and often people think that falling is a normal part of aging and they'll dismiss it. It's not. Falling is not a normal part of aging. And there's some really easy ways to prevent that. So some of the first steps are just when you're at mom and dad's house, just say, hey, I know you love these throw rugs and you really feel like they add a lot, but if they trip and cause a fall, in the grand scheme of things, preventing the fall might outweigh the aesthetics of having the throw rugs. What do you think about that, Mom? And come at it with a non-threatening way. That's a really easy place to start. And then once you plant the seed and you start having those conversations, then it can be easier to talk about down the road.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when you have that conversation, you said you need to have it before you get signs of a decline. What's the best way to approach that beyond just what you said, which is in a non-threatening way? Because this is tough for a child of an aging parent to do. It's very tough. And they don't know how that parent's going to accept that conversation. So I guess, how do you screw up the courage to have that conversation?
Right.
That's the question, right?
And I think it's just about it's always easier to have a courageous conversation, right? A potentially difficult conversation outside of a moment of conflict. So if you can just have it when you're just over visiting, having a barbecue and relaxed and just letting mom and dad know, hey, I'm concerned about you and I love you and I would love to hear more about your plan for staying safe. Have you all thought about aging in place, or would you feel better downsizing and moving into a community? I think a lot of times there's a lot of pressure to get it right. And obviously it depends on the family dynamic. I'm sure as well as I do that sometimes we have a myopic view of what family dynamics are. We think everyone else's family dynamic is perfect. And we know that's not true. When we all start to talk about it, we realize that we are all dealing with the same familial messiness.
Yes, for sure. It's like a friend of mine did a calendar of her family with photos, and the slogan was, we put the fun in dysfunction. I think that's true for everyone. Yeah. We're talking a lot here about children of aging parents as your clients, but you've got those that are aging as clients too, right?
For sure.
So let's talk about them.
Yeah, we have two other main segments of clientele. We have customers who are experiencing the journey themselves. They're deeply in it and they want to be proactive, and they take the lead and they come in and they say, hey, I'm ready for a lift recliner. My lazy boy or my recliner has lasted a long time, but I'm ready for one maybe that has lift assist that's going to last me for another 15, 20 years. And they're excited about it. And then we have another segment of customers that are younger, mid 40s to early 60s, and they have a recent diagnosis of maybe a neurological degenerative disease, and they have diminished mobility, but they are young, they are still working, they are still socializing with friends and family. And that approach is different. We see who they are. They have different needs, and we try to meet them where they are as well.
Yeah. Wow. Let's talk about those that are aging, that are proactively coming. You have the lift recliners are a great example, right? Where someone has got the prototypical Barco Lounger or whatever, and just talk about the advantages of having a lift recliner that is made for someone that's having mobility issues and it's hard getting up and down like it used to be.
Sure. I think the first thing to know is that they're just advanced recliners that are the most comfortable chair you've sat in. So people sit in them all the time and say, oh my, someone was in my shop yesterday and he said, oh my gosh, I can't believe how comfortable this is. This is a million times more comfortable than my current chair. And I don't feel like I need it. And my response was, these chairs have a limited lifetime warranty. The ones that we sell in our shop have a limited lifetime warranty and a prorated 7-year warranty on things that aren't covered with the lifetime warranty. They last a long time. So a great plan is to get it before you need it, because you don't have to push the button. You can continue to use it as a regular recliner.
Oh,
right?
Interesting.
And
yeah.
just get up. You don't have to use the lift assist until you need it. And then when you need it, you'll have it.
Yeah, that's terrific. So for those that are younger that have limited mobility because of some neurological condition that they've been diagnosed with, what are some of the important issues that they need to be aware of?
I think a lot of times people come in, especially if it's an early stage of their diagnosis, and there are a lot of emotions that surround it. Scott and I don't pretend to understand that. That's not our lived experience, but we do try to tell them, you've got a lot of life to live, and there are things that will help you live it. For example, we have a line of rollators that are made in Europe, and they're sexy. We've got one we call the Ferrari, and it is a good-looking piece of assistive equipment. Scott spied it in an airport a couple of years ago, and he called me, and he was like, honey, we've got to get this rollator in the shop. This is a sexy piece of equipment. And those customers that come in that are younger, they're still working, they still have life to live. They want something that looks different than what somebody maybe who is farther down the road wants and needs. Those aesthetics are important, and we recognize the emotional impact that aesthetics have. So we also carry hospital beds that do not have a clinical look at all, but they have all the clinical features. Nobody needs a reminder that they're sick. So anytime there's a chance to remove that emotional obstacle, we try to do that for them.
Yeah, that's terrific. A rollator, for those that don't know what that is, including me.
Thank you for the opportunity to explain that. So a rollator is a walker that has 4 wheels. A walker usually has no wheels or 2 wheels and 2 glides. And it's not one size fits all. So there are a lot of different styles for both, and we're solutions focused. So when people come in, we've been trained by an occupational therapist. We don't pretend to be something that we're not, but we do seek out experts to train us so that we can properly fit individuals and recognize context and home usage and who's going to be the best fit for what.
Yeah, that's terrific. Mary, one of the things you said there really stands out for me. You talked about the clinical look, and that's a nice way of saying austere and scary, right?
Yeah.
And that's the way I think we think of medical equipment stores that way. And it sounds like what you and your husband are doing with your store is not just in the equipment that you feature, but in the way you showcase that equipment. You realize that culture is also not just tied up in people, but design. And what that design does to welcome and comfort people that are in a tough time of life. Talk about that.
Yeah, we fully recognize that every single person that comes through our door is stressed and vulnerable. They're dealing with chronic illness or acute medical events themselves, or they're supporting a loved one who is. And so we always have nice music, smooth jazz or classical is playing at all times. We have an aromatherapy diffuser, and we have that on every day. We've arranged our lift recliners in a nice kind of circle We have a rug and side tables, and they're all plugged in so that it's inviting. Someone can walk right in, have a seat, try them out. We've got 3,500 square feet, so we have plenty of room for people to drive the scooters, drive the power chairs. And it's funny because people ask me multiple times a week, may I sit in this? May I try this? And it's absolutely, that's what we're here for. Right. Yeah.
A test drive, right? Nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, I want to get to the insurance piece of it that you mentioned earlier. Understanding what Medicare will cover is an important issue, but how does that insurance get handled?
So we are private pay, but we spend a lot of time educating people. Hospital beds are a great example that I can use. So Medicare will provide a hospital bed to an individual when they're found eligible by their provider. But Medicare provides a crank bed. It has to be cranked manually up and down. It has limited features. It's a very basic bed. It has limited max lifting height and limited max lowering height. When we have a conversation with someone, we talk to them about their loved one's condition. And for example, if someone has congestive heart failure or something called lymphedema, which is swelling in the lower extremities, there's a feature called Trendelenburg and reverse Trendelenburg. Those features can benefit them and improve circulation by elevating ankles above heart. It's referring to the way the bed tilts. A basic bed supplied by insurance will not provide those features. So we educate people so that they can make a fully informed decision about what they want to do. Because again, it's not whether people will have financial output, it's how they're going to spend it. If you don't have some of those other complications, and you have a caregiver that has the strength to crank the bed up and down, to raise and lower it, then absolutely leverage those benefits and spend your money elsewhere.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And this is where planning ahead comes into play again, right? So you are in the North Fulton community, and just talk about, because you've got a unique window into this, talk about what with the aging in place population in the North Fulton area.
So we have the wonderful benefit of this climate, and here in Atlanta, and the North Fulton has wonderful park systems. We've got the Greenway, and my customers love getting outdoors. They are walking on the Greenway with their grandkids. They're still riding bikes. They are going to concerts in and around town, and they're participating in a lot of the social events out and about here in North Fulton. They're active and they want to continue being as active as possible, but doing it safely along the way. And we have a lot of our customers also move here to be closer to their own kids who are working here in the Atlanta area. So they're coming back so that they can be in the same city as their children.
Yeah. Yeah. Terrific. Yeah, it's such great work you're doing in meeting their needs while they're trying to live the best life they can live. That's terrific. Mary, I think it'd be great if you could share a success story or two that helps illustrate the great work that you're doing at Mobility Plus.
Sure. So I'm going to flip the script a little bit. I think often when people talk about success stories, they are, and rightly, highlighting something that they feel turned out really well in a traditional sense. I'm going to share something that taught us a valuable lesson. So I believe in the power of vulnerability. I think that when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, that becomes a strength. So we had a customer last year and we did not meet their expectations. They knew what they wanted. They had a loved one who had some cognitive impairment, and the loved one had altered a piece of our equipment. And we found ourselves between a rock and a hard place because cognitive impairment was present. We knew that the individual had altered the piece of equipment, but the family member saw things very differently. And we found ourselves in a very difficult position of not meeting this customer's expectations. And the success is that it allowed us some time to reflect. It was a new situation for us. And I think sometimes when things are going well, we become complacent and stuff feels easy. And then you're hit with a challenge. And as a small business owner, the stakes are high because every individual that walks through your door could leave a great review or a bad review. And they have a whole network of people that they're going to communicate with and share great things or not so great things. So at the end of the day, what we did was we replaced the unit, no questions asked. We said, absolutely. We will handle it however you want us to handle it. We ended up giving them an entirely new unit. And it was a loss for us, but I think inventory-wise. But the gain was that we learned how to navigate a complicated situation. And at the end of the day, the customer was happy and their loved one got what they needed. And so I think for us, that was success. We navigated those choppy waters and I'm proud of how we handled it because I think sometimes as a small business owner, you have to let go of the customer does come first every time. And we try to recognize someone else's perspective and understand that the individuals that we're dealing with are coming from a place of extreme stress and caring for a loved one for a very long time. And it did have a happy ending at the end of the day.
Wow. Speaking of vulnerability, way to share a story like that. That's terrific, Mary. And you're right. When you're a business owner, it's easy to look at whether it's your inventory or the service that you provide, and you see a dollar sign. and that's just natural. That's not a criticism on my part. That's natural. And it's sometimes that dollar sign gets so big, it obscures the humanity that's present in the customer, right?
Right.
Yeah. Wow. What a great story. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Do you want to share a story where you got some kudos?
Absolutely.
Since you were so courageous to share that one.
Yeah. I will say we have lots of those, but we had someone come in recently and he said, when I asked him how he found us, he said, I called you. He said, and you were the only person that answered my questions. He said, I was long-winded that day. He said, I live alone. And he said, I'm lonely. And I remember, and it makes me teary thinking about it because loneliness is an epidemic in this country and people can live in an assisted living community and be surrounded by people and be terribly lonely because they don't have strong family connections. And so I remember this gentleman, we talked on the phone for 20 minutes and I listened to him and I knew that he just needed someone to talk to. He was a lovely man. And he ended up coming into my shop and he said, Mary, he said, I came because you listened to me. He said, I knew that I was taking up too much of your time. And he said, but you didn't dismiss me and you didn't hang up on me and you didn't give me an excuse. He said, you listened to me. He said, so I knew when I hung up, the next time I needed something, I was coming in your shop. And he did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Congratulations on that.
Well,
and more broadly to you and your husband for establishing such a fantastic business here in the North Fulton region and serving so many people the way you do. We're just delighted we could share a spotlight on that today.
Thank you.
Yeah. But let's get to the final and most important question is, which for those who heard this interview and want to know more, where can they learn more and where can they find your store? Absolutely.
So Mobility Plus Alpharetta is located off exit 12B. We are where Highway 9 meets McFarland Drive. 4029 McFarland Drive. And we have 3,500 square feet. No appointment is necessary. We're open Monday through Friday, 10 to 5, and Saturdays, 9 to 1.
Terrific. Mary Block from Mobility Plus Alpharetta. Mary, thanks again for coming in.
Thanks for having me, John. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was terrific. Thank you. Hey, folks, just a couple of quick things before we let you go today. Not far from Mary's location. In fact, I saw Mary there the other day at Casa Nova. So Casa Nova Italian Restaurant. So both of us can tell you about how great Casa Nova is. And they are, here's the deal. They were cooked a farm-to-table kitchen before farm-to-table was cool. I can tell you that because they've had a garden behind their location for years and years where they grow tomatoes and corn and peppers and zucchini and all the ingredients that go into a lot of their cook-to-order dishes. So whether you are craving pasta or chicken or seafood, veal, vegetarian, whatever you're looking for that has that classic, authentic, and traditional Italian taste, Casa Nova is your bet. CasaNovaRestaurant.com is the website. Again, they're located just north of McFarland on Highway 9. So give them a try and you'll be glad you did. They do catering too, by the way. Also, folks, I've got a book out. It's called The Generosity Mindset, A Journey to Business Success by Raising Your Confidence, Value, and Prices. If you are a professional services provider and you have concerns about how to express your value, you've got maybe mindset issues about that value, and you need better pricing in your business, this book may be for you. Go to thegenerositymindset.com to learn more and to find out where to buy the book, which is essentially everywhere. And also, I want to thank you, our listener. We are coming up on, we're about 20 shows shy of 800 in this series, North Fulton Business Radio, which started about 8 years ago. And I don't know what I thought when we started this show, but I did not think in terms of 800 shows. So I'm bringing that up not because of us, but because of you, because you've supported us over these years, and you continue to like us on social media. You share the shows. You give us great feedback on the guests that we have, and you give us guest suggestions, and we're grateful for that. Thank you for that. You help us live into our mission to be the voice of business in the North Fulton region, and I'm grateful. Thank you. So for my guest, Mary Block, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.